In a futuristic world of tempting food stands and questionable technology, a sarcastic barista suddenly becomes the target of insecure men with inexplicable powers. She and her cat travel to a lawless city to claim her unwanted inheritance, navigate annoying social media, and battle supervillains. Femininity in the post-apocalypse.
Greetings, my voluptuous vigilantes of vengeance. Thank you for listening to Femininity in the Post-Apocalypse, a feminist exploration of dystopian media. I'm your host, Klaire Lockheart. I'm Miss Art World South Dakota, a Rural Regenerator Fellow, and I'm doing my best to keep from drowning in an ocean of ennui. My wonderful guest and I are going to discuss the 2015 novel Futuristic Violence and Fancy Suits by Jason Pargin. We'll chat about the plot, rate the story, and then I'll introduce you to the latest recipient of the Honorary Doctor of Dystopian Studies degree from the unaccredited College of Klaire. I'm happy you're listening. My guest is the incredible artist Aaron C Packard. He's a corporate industrial lifestyle photographer who recently won a crap ton of awards, including one for a colorful sunset over a dramatic landscape of porta potties. You can see his amazing photographs for yourself at aaronpackard.com. That's spelled AARONPACKARD.com. Our friends who know us in real life or follow us online already know that we're married, but I feel like I should disclose that fun fact for all our new friends. Everyone, please welcome my favorite person on the planet, Aaron C Packard.
Hello, great to be back.
Hello, handsome. I'm happy you could join us. Tell us a little bit more about this porta potty photograph.
Well, I mean, I have to thank you for calling me out of our camper to go get the photograph back when it happened. But it's the South Dakota sunset is what it's called. And it's actually looking away from the sunset. So it's actually a scene that's being illuminated by the sunset. But it's this fantastic colors of clouds with this green landscape and this amazingly placed line of porta potties.
It's wild because it looks so fake. The color scheme of the sky and the array of rainbow porta potties couldn't have been more perfect. Aaron, tell us, well, I already know how you got this photo, but our friends listening don't. Regale us with that tale, please.
Oh, well, I mean, we were covering a Sturgis motorcycle rally, and it had been raining for like, what, 2 or 3 days. It was awful. It would have been completely put us behind schedule. But the rain finally broke, and you were outside of the camper, and you were like, hey, come out here, bring your camera. And I'm like, rah, being all grumpy. And so I came out and I brought my camera, and this amazing scene. And it's just one of the things that's just wild is there was like the one bit of clouds that the color was like almost exactly the same as one or two of the porta potties. But then it was just this weird, fantastic composition. Anyways.
You won an award for it. Can you tell us what organization it was from and what the title of the award was?
Yes, it came from the American Photographic Artists, the Los Angeles branch, and every year they do the off the clock competition and show. So it's going to be in that.
That's exciting. Congratulations.
Thanks.
As always, Aaron, I'm elated that you're here for another episode of Femininity in the Post-Apocalypse. You've already discussed the first Mad Max movie, the book Dune, and Fury Road with me. Plus, our amazing friends who are part of the Department of Dystopian Studies at the unaccredited College of Klaire on Patreon are able to listen to our bonus episode about David Lynch's Dune. It's as though we love each other and enjoy watching movies and reading books together.
Yes, we do.
Anyway, thank you for joining me to talk about futuristic violence and fancy suits. This was the first book I encountered by Jason Pargin, and I want to reveal the caveat that this is one of my favorite novels, so I apologize for any bias. Before we take a stab at summarizing the wild plot, Aaron, please share your history with futuristic violence and fancy suits.
I know Jason Pargin originally from his John and Dave series. Before reading the books and becoming familiar with him, I know I saw the movie version of John Dies at the End a long time ago with having no idea who or what or the books or anything. And then it was later on I found out about the books and started reading and listening to them. Then came across, because of you, the new Zoey series, and found that a fantastic contrast to his earlier work with this really fun woman character.
Thank you. And we recently listened to the audiobook together for the whateverth time on some recent road trips we had to take to the Twin Cities area because there are surprisingly very few art galleries in rural South Dakota.
Yeah, we have to travel far to take art around and do things like that. Yes. And then also for my work. Yeah.
So I'll do my best to recap the plot of Futuristic Violence and Fancy Suits to help our memories. If any of our wonderful friends listening haven't read the book, I recommend pausing this podcast, drop everything you're doing, and get thee to a bookstore or a library. I also highly recommend the audiobook. I'm going to provide a blanket warning that there is a lot of violence in this book, because who could have possibly guessed that a novel with the title Futuristic Violence and Fancy Suits would have some violence in it, right?
Yeah, kind of makes sense.
I'm not going to go into graphic detail, but there is realistic domestic violence plus supervillain sci-fi violence. Aaron, if I miss any plot points or you want to elaborate, please feel free to interject.
I shall.
After the synopsis, we'll rate the book using the Maenad-O-Meter. Even though the Maenads were known for chugging wine whilst wreaking havoc, we obviously didn't drink any alcohol while driving. Instead, Aaron, would you mind sharing what snack we kept shoving in our faces when we drove across Minnesota?
Oh, well, when we drive across Minnesota, we generally have to get apple strudel from that crazy big yellow candy store because they have a really good homemade apple strudel that they have there.
Now, of course, we do pack healthier snacks when we go on road trips, but no one wants to hear about us eating Caesar salad wraps and carrot sticks.
Apple strudel is much more interesting.
Definitely. We also consumed a lot of caffeine.
Caffeine is mandatory on road trips.
Absolutely. But with the story, a cat named Stench Machine cowers on the roof of his mobile home because a Santa hologram frightened him. He is terrified of holograms, which is unfortunate because in the not-so-distant future, tacky holograms are abundant. Stench Machine's human attempts to rescue him, but he slinks off the roof shortly after she drags a chair outside into the snow to reach him. Zoey Ashe is a snarky barista who loves her cat, basketball, and helping others. On her day off, she watches a documentary about hyenas. Unbeknownst to Zoey, an attention-seeking man with a surgically augmented robotic jaw stalks her. He continually changes his name to a ferocious biting animal to impress all of his social media followers, but he decides on the hyena after watching the documentary through Zoey's window.
Did he catch the part where they give birth through their penis?
The hyena constantly records his every move to broadcast it on the Blink network, and he plans to abduct Zoey and chew her to death with his metal chompers.
What's his dental floss usage, I wonder?
When Zoey leaves in her old self-driving car to pick up her mom from work, the hyena follows. Zoey's mom, Melinda Ashe is her best friend. Melinda got knocked up by an older rich man when she was a teenager. She's the best mom she can be, but the man was completely absent. He only interacted with Zoey twice in her life. Once, when she was a child, he bought her a football for her birthday. 8 years later, he tried to give her an expensive car and another football to make up for 16 years of neglect, but Zoey rejected it and yelled at him until he left the trailer park.
Very good. She's just an amazing character.
On the way to pick up her mom, Zoey receives a phone call, and the caller ID hologram startles her, thus causing her to spill the drive-through chili she was eating. Whomst amongst us has not spilled inappropriate car food while driving?
Oh, we definitely have.
I think I'm a little bit worse about this than you are because I keep packing the hummus sampler pack for car snacks.
Yes, yes. I mean, with our apple strudel on travels, definitely the amount of the large crystalline sugar that's on top that ends up in your lap and then has to be brushed off at the next rest stop is pretty epic.
Yes. I'm trying to think of some of the other horrible things I've tried to eat while driving. Oh, when we tried to eat car calzones.
Oh, yes. Yeah,
That doesn't work so well.
calzones, yeah.
Car cheesecake works really well if you pick it up.
It does. It does. I mean, sometimes you can get a little bit of the graham cracker crust in your lap, but
But you hold it like a granola bar.
yeah.
You don't try and eat it with a fork, and that's the secret. Anyway, as she licks the spilled chili off her phone, she accidentally answers it. And whomst amongst us has not licked chili off a phone before?
I don't honestly remember ever licking chili off the phone. I'm sure I have other food products, though.
A man who worked for Zoey's dad, named Will Blackwater, warns Zoey that the hyena is planning to abduct her to claim a bounty. Will is always dressed in a fancy suit, and his favorite accessory is a glass of whiskey. He has the personality of a robot programmed by an asshole.
Yes, yes, he does.
To save Zoey, one of Will's associates overrides the auto drive on her car and pilots the vehicle. The chase concludes with Zoey and the hyena standing on a frozen pond, but the remote control car runs over the bad guy. As Zoey warms up in the hyena's rental car, Will reveals that her father, Arthur Livingston, died and she needs to come to Tabula Rasa, a lawless techno-nightmare of a city that Arthur helped establish. Now, Tabula Rasa sounds horrible, but all the food trucks sound amazing. I want nothing more than to eat an ice cream churro.
Yes. To give a little preview of whatever of subsequent books, the food truck descriptions get better and better as the stories go on.
Zoey and her cat travel by train from Colorado to Utah. Not only does the train car smell like pee, but everyone seems to be staring at her. Since she doesn't spend all her time on the Blink network, Zoey is unaware that 18 million viewers now know who she is. She also doesn't know another man is determined to abduct her. He's on her train, and he's wearing a loincloth made out of disturbing plastic doll heads. This man has techno implants that can shoot electricity from his fingertips. After the train stops, Dollhead Crotchman takes Zoey hostage. Will shows up and attempts to talk down the abductor. Zoey realizes that Dolly, pardon my groin, wants nothing but attention. So she encourages him to show off his lightning trick, but as his fingers spark, she spits a mouthful of whiskey at him. This creates a fireball and lights his crotch on fire, and she takes the opportunity to flee with her cat carrier. Zoey escapes into a toppled-over building scheduled for demolition. After accidentally murdering a taco delivery drone, because she was paranoid it was surveillance, Zoey encounters construction workers. She helps them program the holograms on their phones, and then a young worker named Rico, who is active on Blink, tells Zoey that Arthur Livingston left an unopenable vault, and his daughter, no one knew about, has the only key.
Ooh.
A crime family posted an offer of $3 million to capture Zoey, and the key, but Arthur's people counter-offered 5. A huge man in a lovely pinstripe suit named Andre Knox arrives on the scene. He's another associate of Arthur's. Zoey agrees to go with Andre, but only if he pays the reward to Rico.
Which is so cool.
As they travel to the Livingston estate, Andre agrees that what Arthur did to Zoey is unfair. He offers to hold Arthur down in the afterlife so Zoey can punch him. Even though Zoey doesn't trust Andre yet, she'll warm up to his friendly and mischievous personality later. When they arrive on the grounds at the Casa de Asa, which was named by Arthur Livingston, they're greeted by Candy, the stripper hologram security system.
Yes, probably one of the most offensive parts of the book.
But it's written in a way that shows us that it is, in fact, indeed offensive.
Yes. Very purposefully offensive.
And on the plus side, if I read you this book as a bedtime story, I get to do this voice and give you nightmares for years. Anyway, they also pass by a tiger enclosure and a Die Hard themed nativity set, so Zoey asks Andre if Arthur was in fact 13 years old.
Yes, probably about 13.
Inside the mansion, Zoey meets the ancient butler Carlton and sees a million Christmas decorations. She finds Will sipping scotch. A video on Blink claims that his nickname is The Magician because someone once caught him on camera doing the only coin trick he knows. Zoey meets Bud Billingsley, a cartoon caricature of a cowboy businessman. And since we're playing by video game rules, the 4th member of the team is Boobs McGee. What is her actual name, Aaron?
Now you threw me off with the Boobs McGee. I wasn't expecting that.
Her name is Michelle Echo Ling. Blink claims that she's a Chinese sexy seductress, but she's actually a compassionate and competent tech worker who's Filipino. Besides, Andre insists that he's the sexy seductress.
Definitely.
Zoey is leery that Arthur didn't trust the suits with the key. She's concerned they'll kill her after she opens the safe, and all she wants to do is go home. After reluctantly opening the biometric vault with a scan of her face, Zoey learns that it only contains a hologram of Arthur relaying his wishes, plus his lucky coin. The ghostogram informs Zoey that she inherited everything because she's the only person he could trust, and that Will must show Zoey how to do the coin trick. Since she's the boss, she fires everyone. If you suddenly became magically wealthy and inherited a powerful business empire, Aaron, what would your first order of business be?
Vacation.
For whom?
Everybody, especially me and you.
It's 2 a.m. The house is empty, and after feeding Stench Machine on the fanciest porcelain, Zoey orders a pizza. Unfortunately, the delivery person is the hyena in disguise. He attacks her, but Zoey rips off his lapel camera and chucks it down the hallway. The hyena has to choose between continuing his assault without an audience or retrieving his camera. He chooses the latter and calls Zoey an incredibly creative term that men often like to use to insult women when they don't get their way.
He's such a lovely individual.
When he's in the hallway, he is then shot in the head by Armando Luis.
Yay!
The hero has entered the story. He is the 4th best bodyguard in Tabula Rasa. Zoey hires him, and he advises her not to eat a pizza delivered by a serial killer.
Oh, shame of a waste of a good meatocalypse? Is that what it was called? Yes, the
Meatocalypse pizza. Have you ever been stopped from eating a questionable pizza before?
Probably. I don't know if I actually stopped, but
The next morning, Zoe is startled to learn that she's a celebrity and her toilet is so fancy it talks.
I don't know if I'd want a talking toilet. That's just too much technology.
I don't think you should have that much water and electricity nearby each other, but her futuristic potty didn't scare the crap out of her, just a fart. She's also surprised to see Carlton, but he went to bed before she fired everybody, so he prepares a gourmet breakfast for Stench Machine and a decadent human breakfast for Zoe.
Yes, I really, really someday want to try to make an Elvis sandwich in the method of Carlton.
When you've made an Elvis sandwich for me, you would make French toast. And betwixt those slices of French toast, you'd put peanut butter and bananas, and sometimes at my insistence, some chocolate syrup. But what does Carlton do to his Elvis sandwich?
With his, if I remember correctly, I mean, it is the banana and the peanut butter on like some amazing French bread or something. But then he takes the entire thing and dips it in batter and then deep fries it and then covers it with like syrup and powdered sugar and stuff.
I hope somebody listening to this is inspired to make the Futuristic Violence in Fancy Recipes book.
Ooh,
That would be delicious.
yeah.
Andre and Bud arrive to sheepishly plead for their jobs and to assure Zoe they can protect her from the monsters. Zoe and Armando are on their way to meet the suits at Livingston Tower, but Zoe insists they stop at a dilapidated building she spots on the way. It's known as Squatterville, and most of the poor inhabitants are families with children. Echo and Andre inform Zoe that the doll head crotch guy died, and he was part of an organization of toxic masculinity powered by experimental tech that keeps exploding when the villains activate it. The leader of the organization is called Molech. But Zoe bets his real name is Chad.
Yes. It's not far off from Chad. Molech is quite the character.
Yes, indeed. He is patriarchy the guy?
Definitely, definitely with sociopathic cult leader,
Frat boy.
frat boy.
Because Zoe inadvertently dong roasted Doll Dude to death, it embarrassed Molech and he is seeking revenge. Not only does Molech want to torture and murder Zoe, he believes she has the program that will make his tech implants work without exploding. As a threat, he sends a man to stalk her mom.
Yes.
Zoe later snoops around her house and finds a video of Molech beating Arthur to death. To cope with the stress, Zoe makes use of Arthur's extravagant coffee equipment. She excelled at her job at the coffee shop, and the routine of making complex beverages calms her. Aaron, you drink a lot more coffee than I do. Do you have a favorite?
I'm generally a straight up coffee person, but I do have a certain love of the traditional cafe au lait in a bowl, which is good dark coffee with steamed milk.
Did you used to work in a coffee shop where they would grind the beans?
Oh, yes, yes. When I was in the Navy, I had a weekend night job so I could hang out with regular people at a coffee shop in Mystic, Connecticut.
But sometimes you would have some fancy rich people come in and buy coffee.
Yes, some very fancy rich people in their fancy suits who had obviously no idea how to make coffee because they had never had to make their own coffee.
Tell me more.
The particular story I can remember offhand is this woman came in wearing a full-length mink coat, and this is in the mid-90s, so how she avoided some PETA paint-throwing people, I have no idea. Big string of pearls, and was looking around at all the coffee, and then was there for quite a while trying to make a decision, but then, of course, decided on the most expensive coffee, which would have been Jamaican Blue Mountain,
Mm-hmm.
which is a very, very expensive, fancy coffee. then, ordered a pound of it, and I asked her if she wanted it ground, and it just got this completely blank, confused look on her face and asked, would that make it taste better?
So you were selling the whole coffee bean,
Yes.
and she would buy the full coffee bean and run it through her coffee pot, not having it ground up.
Well, I don't think she really had any plans of actually making the coffee. I
Oh.
suspect. I think she just wanted to experience being cool and buying fancy whole bean fresh roasted coffee, because that was kind of just starting to be a pretty cool thing in that time period in the 90s when those types of coffee shops are really really starting to get popular.
But back to the story.
Yes.
As the team prepares for Arthur's memorial service, they learn that Molech is the son of a rich arms dealer. Zoe gets fitted by a tailor for her funeral outfit, and as she changes, she recounts how one of her mom's abusive ex-boyfriends gave her a terrible scar when she was a child. The memorial is a huge party with holographic ghosts of Arthur, music, booze, and so much incredible food.
I really want to get a copy of the hologram, or someone to make it, of the hologram of Arthur punching a Nazi, because I think that.
Yes. Some of the guests are wearing Team Molech shirts because they believe that the wealthy and augmented Molech, who murders innocent people and terrorizes the town, is the underdog in his fight against a poverty-stricken barista who just got to town. Zoe asks Will to teach her the coin trick in case Molech kills her, but Will declines. Zoe's bodyguard, Armando, introduces Wu, a katana-bearing badass who typically works the night shift.
I like Wu. Wu's a great character.
He is, but Armando does accuse him of something with that sword.
Yes, and that's really where you get the initial excessively dry humor of that character.
A shirtless Molech and his henchmen literally crash the funeral pyre with a flamboyant monster truck. Molech tells his main henchman that Zoe is trailer trash, and Zoe introduces them to her team as Miles O'Smiles and Dick Christmas. After menacing Zoe, Molech monologues about how the strong should take from the weak. He grabs Zoe to rip her arm off, but Armando literally disarms Molech by slicing off Molech's hands with Wu's sword.
Yes, one of many Wu swords, apparently. His ancient family sword has multiple duplicates that he can pull out when one gets destroyed.
Doesn't Armando accuse him of having a big barrel full of katanas from Costco?
Yes.
Why don't we have a barrel of swords at the house?
I mean, I suppose we could if we really wanted to.
Ooh, that's what I want for my birthday next year. Later that night/early morning, Zoe discovered that Armando also had the glitching technology installed in his body.
She discovered this in bed.
Or in the pool.
Or in the pool. I don't know. They had some fun.
They definitely had some fun. But anyway, Armando got this tech installed because he wanted to be a superhero. Zoe reveals this information to the suits the next morning. Will fiddles with Arthur's lucky coin as they watch a video of Molech, who somehow didn't bleed to death after having his hands chopped off. As he flips the coin, Will suddenly realizes that the programming is hidden in a drive in the coin that can only be unlocked by Zoe's thumbprint.
Yes.
Echo discovers the files are mostly gibberish, but she finds the right program and uploads it to Armando, who will attack Molech's secret lair, which is in the charred remains of the twin fire and ice casino buildings. Molech orders Melinda Stalker to bury her alive, so Zoe agrees to meet Molech at Livingston Tower. He sends 3 henchmen to taunt and assault Zoe. While they're in the building, Molech shows off his new robotic hands by punching the support beams, which causes the building to start collapsing. Zoey tries to reason with the henchmen by illuminating that they're going to die when the building collapses because they're inside of it, but they're too busy boasting that they're all alpha males to listen.
Yes, the alpha males following the alpha male.
They're all number one.
Apparently. I don't know how that works, but, Zoe brings up that argument as well.
Meanwhile, Armando fights henchmen one by one until he meets Rodzilla.
Rodzilla.
Rodzilla is a haphazard evil transformer with his name painted on his robotic armor in all caps, but the last few letters are too small because he didn't plan it out. Is it a big surprise that these macho bullies never took an art or design class? Rodzilla makes excuses about his sloppy and unfinished machine parts, but it doesn't matter because he explodes.
Yes, he does.
Unfortunately, a flailing henchman manages to shoot and kill Armando.
Oh, Armando's so great. So sad.
Fortunately, Zoey is able to escape her captors by using a baby shark from a shattered aquarium as a weapon. Shark him!
Shark to the crotch.
Echo and Will rescue her in a dramatic helicopter escape that culminates with a large decorative Santa decapitation.
Yes.
Additionally, Bud and Andre find the mother of the man who buried Melinda, pay off her student loans, and tattle on her son. She makes her son dig up and free Melinda. When Zoey later calls her mom, she emphasizes that she wants "I love you" to be the last thing she says, but Melinda tells her daughter to take cranberry supplements before she hangs up.
One of the most realistic conversations, I think, of that book.
When your mom calls you, do a lot of phone conversations get derailed?
Yeah. There's always some last reminder that has to be brought up, no matter what the topic is.
Molech's scientist was able to copy the software from Armando's body, which he transfers to Molech. He makes a video announcing that he is no longer a man, implying he is beyond human, but his gendered language of conflating men with all humans makes it sound like he is no longer male. Anyway, he announces he will attack the city. Back at the Casa de Asa, the suits procured a fabricator that looks like a giant metal caterpillar that poops out random gizmos created from the coin drive. They're searching for the one ring that will control all the tech implants, but they're manufacturing devices randomly because they can't decipher the menu. Will explains to Zoey that people love the idea of the apocalypse because they're selfish and want the world to die with them.
It makes sense.
He also reveals that Arthur, who was like a father to him, was naive and wanted Tabula Rasa to be a clean slate for everyone. Zoey had a few opportunities to escape with her mom, but she doesn't want to abandon her team. She's tired of running from angry men. As Molech's terrorist deadline approaches, sleep-deprived Zoey and the exhausted suits devise an absolutely absurd plan to defeat Molech.
I think a lot of the planning was purely Zoe.
This includes fooling the private armed security co-op to attack Molech and tricking a scrappy and stupid team called the League of Badass to protect the people at Squatterville. They persuade the foreman in charge of renovating Molech's headquarters to tamper with the designs, and they get their hands on the plans for Molech's supervillain suit.
Of course he has to have a supervillain suit.
Do you have a supervillain suit planned for when you will snap and try to take over the world?
Not really, but it definitely would have a super huge, pointy, stiff collar.
Excellent. We'll all quake in fear at your giant, elaborate collar. It turns out that one of Zoey's employees is secretly on Team Molech.
Oh, no.
In an attempt to impress his testosterbot boss, this traitor programs Zoey's car to capture her and take her straight to the king of toxic masculinity. Moloch and his shirtless minions murder many people and destroy structures, all while making sure they're properly framed by his top henchman and videographer, who Moloch and no one else calls Black Scott.
Yes. In fact, he even said that Black Scott came up with the name Black Scott, to which Scott said no.
Oh. Aaron, you've done some videographer work. Have you ever been accidentally employed by an evil supervillain?
Not that I'm aware of, but it could be possible.
I mean, you used to work for a university for a while.
That's true. That's true.
Whoops. Anyway, Moloch beats Zoey, ties her up with barbed wire, and drags her along his path of destruction. He also insults her, monologues for the camera, and can't stop it with the rape threats. Now, the final battle is so epic and hilarious, I don't want to ruin it for people who haven't read the story. But I already advised everyone to pause their show and go read Futuristic Violence in Fancy Suits first.
Absolutely.
Anyway, Moloch and his macho minions are about to attack Squatterville because bullies like easy wins. The League of Badass is there, but they flee. Zoey attempts to plead with Moloch through a broken jaw with knocked out teeth. Everything seems to be going his way. When suddenly, a taco drone smashes into Moloch. Then another, and another. Blink users witness Moloch fight every Mexican food delivery drone in the city.
That boy sure loves his tacos.
This was part of Zoey's plan. She thinks she will die content if a refried bean-covered Moloch having a tantrum is the last thing she sees. I know we're in a very serious, action-packed part of the book, but wow, I wish taco drone delivery technology was a thing.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Next, Andre interrupts Moloch's blink feed. He is dressed exactly like Moloch in a duplicate supervillain suit of a different color. He does a supervillain laugh and thanks his sidekick Moloch. Evil Andre announces he is at their evil lair. The tarps covering the fire and ice buildings drop to reveal a multi-story relief of a nude Moloch with a tiny wang, and a nude evil Andre with a generous heaping of naughty bits. An enraged Moloch careens toward his headquarters and destroys the buildings. Evil Andre reports that he was in the sideways building all along, plus he has a nuclear bomb.
Ooh.
Everyone with a gun or camera heads toward Diabolical Andre, which makes Moloch jealous because he wanted all the attention.
Mm-hmm.
Moloch and Scott drag Zoey to Livingston Estate. They are welcomed by the betrayer, who was the groundskeeper. The groundskeeper boasts that he is a great scheming mastermind, but Zoey doesn't recognize him at all, which infuriates him.
Isn't his name Gary?
Maybe.
Gary.
He's very forgettable. Moloch thanks the groundskeeper for his work by punching him to death. Next, Moloch is greeted by Arthur sitting next to Will, which stuns Moloch because he killed Arthur. Arthur explains that he's been pretending he was dead so he could create the One Ring, which is basically a remote that can control all the super implants. Arthur tells him to leave town because Tabula Rasa is his. Otherwise, he'll detonate the nuke. Stench Machine enters. And he's decided he's had enough of being tormented, so he attacks Arthur's hologram projection, revealing it was a ruse.
No, Stench Machine ruins it again.
The cats are super helpful when you're trying to do work or save the world.
Oh, yeah, they never thwart anything that's going on.
Moloch hurts Will. Zoey hits a riot control device and manages to get Will and Stench Machine out of the room through a secret exit so they can hobble to the fabricator. Zoey remembers something on the gibberish menu that could really be the controlling One Ring. After finding the file and starting the fabricator, Wu drives a very fancy car away from the house to make the bad guys think Zoey is fleeing.
Yes, a Bugatti.
And that's a fancy, expensive car, right?
Very, very fancy, very expensive car. Yes.
The League of Badass decides to redeem themselves from their prior cowardice and attempt to attack Wicked Andre.
But Andre has his cat suit.
One of the first inventions they printed out of the fabricator was a magnet.
Yes, and it was grabbing like the cat collar.
It would attract all the metal in the cat collars. And so didn't they cover his suit with these gizmos? So he's covered in kittens.
Yes. The League of Badass wouldn't shoot him because they didn't want to be seen shooting a kitten.
And not only do they fail to get Andre, all they do is reveal that the bomb is fake. Sinister Andre lures the League back to Livingston Estate as Scott finds Will and beams him in the head with a brick. Molech bursts through the wall like a deranged Kool-Aid man, breaks Zoey's leg, and orders his henchmen to catch and dismember Stench Machine. Molech and his head honcho henchman waste time framing Molech for his social media stream, and Zoey drags herself to the fabricator to grab what it produced. She sees it's a stupid football helmet, curses, and blacks out. After she regains consciousness, Molech announces that 1 billion people watching his Blink stream voted on how he should violate her. Zoey grabs the helmet and plunks it on her head. Molech grabs Zoey, and just as he's about to rip off her shirt, she tells him to stop. Surprisingly, he does. His implants are frozen. Realizing that the helmet is the control device, she orders everyone to freeze. She immediately commands them all to spank themselves.
Yes, it doesn't work though.
No, the directions have to be more specific. So she orders Scott to extend his arm and open his hand, so he flings the camera across the room, causing it to break. Andre and Echo arrive just as the League of Badass enters and easily defeats the frozen foes.
Yes.
As Zoey is recovering from one of her many lengthy surgeries, Andre keeps her company while watching basketball. Wu brings her a kintsugi vase he created by gluing together a broken vase with gold.
Such a special gift, yes.
It is. Will stops to bring a brand new cat toy for Stench Machine, but he pretends it's an old one he found because he can't show human emotions. Zoey invites Will to join her and drink beer, since she's on a liquid diet. They chat about what other supervillains will emerge and who was the brains behind Molech, since he didn't have any.
Yes, there's probably some deeper, higher plot at hand.
Zoey can't figure out if Will is using reverse psychology to get her to stay in Tabula Rasa or not, but she will stay regardless.
Wonderful little thwarting of the standard hero's journey.
Yes. But Aaron, do you know what else is a cliffhanger that makes our friends wait in anticipation for more entertainment?
Advertising?
Yes, this transition to the ad break. Femininity in the Post-Apocalypse is sponsored by the unaccredited College of Klaire. If you like that I keep the advertising segment short, so you don't have to stop what you're doing and fast forward through the commercials, head over to patreon.com/Klaire Lockheart to let me know. You can join for free, but I think you'll enjoy the subscription tiers too. That's patreon.com/Klaire Lockheart, spelled KLAIRE LOCKHEART. Welcome back, my friends. Before we discuss Jason Pargin's novel, Futuristic Violence and Fancy Suits, I want to remind our lovely listeners that the purpose of this program is to discuss dystopian media considering intersectional feminism. This simply means that we understand that women are people and people have various intersecting identities. I often feel overwhelmed with despair when I keep up with the news, but instead of feeling completely powerless and alone, I created this podcast. I hope that anyone else who is feeling disenfranchised will at least be comforted knowing you're not alone. I care about you, and we want to keep you company so you feel less lonely, which is why we make this show. It's easier to be hopeful about the future when you have friends, and that helps you take action to shape the world around you for the better. First, we'll have a brief conversation about the book, and then we'll evaluate it using the Maenad-O-Meter.
Maenad-O-Meter.
Even though the fancy suits were a key attribute of many of the characters, food and beverages also played a prominent role in the story. Aaron, what did you think about the things to eat and drink in this book?
Yeah, there was many things. It's really hard to remember. I mean, definitely there was the sandwich we talked about before, and then there's like all the food stands and food trucks and such that get talked about, and the wonderful drone delivered tacos. I really want drone delivered tacos.
It feels like the only time we get to wear fancy suits and eat tasty snacks is when we attend art receptions. However, this last winter, Aaron, you created an excuse for some of the coolest people we know to dress up while gathering around a table.
Yes.
I'm sure you've guessed what I'm referring to, but I want you to tell our wonderful friends joining us about the epic photograph you created called The Table.
Well, really, it was just an excuse for me to build a big, huge custom softbox that I'd been wanting to make.
So, for those of us who are not professional photographers, could you tell us what a softbox is?
It's just a device to make a big, soft light source.
And what sizes can this custom made softbox you created extend to?
At the moment, 2x4, 2x8, or 4x8.
And so you created this diabolical contraption, this huge softbox to light a scene.
Yes, and had been also thinking about this playing with the idea or composition of the Last Supper, but in a much more contemporary and, I don't know, fun way, taking a bit of a feminist twist to it and such. So, I mean, you were a fantastic help with casting this great group of people that we brought together, women and non-binary artists and such, to gather around this table in this great environment, and then include all sorts of junk food that was Jellos and Twinkies and cakes and zebra cakes, and yeah, it was awesome.
And you made some wild jello molds for this photo shoot.
Yes, we did do a little bit of a play with fruit and different things to jello molds to try to get a little bit of that 1950s jello aesthetic.
Yeah,
Sure.
they were
Yeah.
a wobbly, perfect suburban nightmare of a jello dessert, which is wonderful. This scene you created is so complex, and I want people to be able to see it because you won an award for this photograph as well, right?
This one was just recently in the American Society of Media Photographers big national annual contest, got Best Conceptual Photo.
This is such an amazing composition. I want people to be able to see it. What's the best way for people to view it, Aaron?
Social media is the best. So either my Instagram or my LinkedIn both has some good posts with it included.
When people look you up, they should make sure to type Aaron C Packard. C as in camera. C as in cool.
Yes. Oh, cool. Yeah, that works
C
out.
as in conceptual.
Ooh, yes, conceptual. What a word in the art realm.
Like a lot of dystopian and sci-fi media, most of the characters in futuristic violence and fancy suits are men. Even though the protagonist is a young woman, 86.85% of the numbered characters I counted in this tale were men. Did it seem like most of them were men and masculine to you, Aaron?
Yes, yeah. Zoe definitely takes over the story quite a bit, but yes, the amount of actual characters are mostly men.
Of course, there is nothing wrong with being a man or creating masculine characters, and while I'm at it, I suppose I should include the blanket disclaimer that, of course, when I talk about men, I don't literally mean all men, because I don't have time to deal with angry people on the internet who get easily offended. Anyway, many of the main characters were men. The antagonist was a man, and all of his henchmen were, unsurprisingly, men. I'd like to discuss the portrayal of masculinity, beginning with Molech, the supervillain.
Molech. Yes.
Aaron, how would you characterize Molech?
Problematic.
Oh, hey, that's easy. Let's move on to the next topic.
Yes, Molech is this sociopathic cult leader who really does not like women.
Yeah, he defines a lot of his power and characteristics just by harming and not seeing women as people.
Yes.
He is just an amalgamation of the worst traits of masculinity pumped up to an extreme where he doesn't see the humanity of anyone who doesn't fit his narrow view of masculinity.
Yes.
And one of the things I really appreciate with this storytelling is that Jason Pargin is pointing out that this is a bad guy, because a lot of times in movies there's the bad guy like the Terminator or Darth Vader, but he's actually really cool and so people like him, but there's nothing redeeming about Molech.
No, there is nothing.
Unfortunately, I feel like sometimes when you are telling a story like this, you have to be blatantly clear with your audience because you don't want them to misinterpret it, like when Fight Club got made into a movie.
Yes, yes.
Oh, what's the other one where the movie was supposed to be like against fascism, but it isn't?
Starship Troopers.
Yeah. So the author is learning from the mistakes of the past.
Yes.
In case this gets turned into a movie. Oh, if this got made into a movie, or I think a miniseries would be better. Aaron, what character do you want to play?
Probably Arthur.
So you can have the glorious fake mustache?
Yes, definitely.
And be the hologram in all those different scenes?
Yes, yes.
Who should I be?
Let's see. Other than Candy, the security system.
Oh no. Here's my audition. Ooh, Bud and Andre are here, and they've brought a strapping young guest. I hope he likes being the meat in a manwich. This nightmare fuel was brought to you by Jason Pargin, author of Futuristic Violence and Fancy Suits.
Oh.
Now, there was a range of masculine characters in this story. Did you enjoy my smooth transition where I didn't even acknowledge? Yeah. Most of the men in this story were violent, but not all. Some of them were clever, some of them were less smart. There were very serious men and funny men. Many of the men were human or cyborgs. But I think it's important that we mention the cat.
Yes, the cat.
Aaron, tell us what you thought of Stench Machine.
Well, I mean, in one argument, I think you could almost say that Stench Machine was the true protagonist of the story. Stench Machine is one of the most pivotal and important plot devices.
You made a joke about how this book goes against the hero's journey. Of course, the most obvious is that the protagonist is a woman, and Joseph Campbell said women can't have a hero's journey because they're supposed to be the award. But Instead of having the wise old wizard lead the hero along her way,
Oh, yes,
is
yes,
Stench
yes.
Machine that character, that archetype?
Very possibly. I definitely see the validity of that argument. Yes.
If that's all you have to say about cats and masculinity, futuristic violence, and fancy suits, I think we can transition to the rating portion.
Ooh, would that be the Maenad-O-Meter?
Yes, the Maenad-O-Meter is our system for rating dystopian media with an intersectional feminist lens. In Greek mythology, the Maenads rebelled against their subservient gendered expectations and fled to the woods to party with the god Dionysus. Sometimes they would seek revenge on those who oppressed them, and this is why we use a scale of 0 to 5 skulls. This evaluation is centered on the dignity and respect of women and people of other marginalized genders. High scores are for narratives that include and respect women, but media that excludes and mistreats women deserves a low score. This evaluation is independent of if we like the book, since we're only considering how feminine characters are treated. I also want to assure our wonderful listeners that it's okay if we disagree. We have conversations like this so we can empathize and learn from each other. If it's all right with you, I'll share my rating first, Aaron.
Yes, yes. I want to know your rating.
I am going to award Futuristic Violence and Fancy Suits, one of my favorite books, a rating of 3.5 skulls. Even though there were only 3 central women in the story, the protagonists interacted with the other 2 women in meaningful ways. I thought Zoey was funny, had agency, and expressed compassion. Unfortunately, she was brutalized relentlessly throughout the story. There was only one occasion when Zoey was harmed by a girl, and that was a school bully. Otherwise, she was attacked and tormented by adult men. The gendered violence in this book is staggering, and unfortunately, it felt realistic. Yes, Moloch's cruelty was exaggerated, but the subsequential injuries made it grounded in reality. The worst part for me in this book was the domestic violence Zoe endured in her childhood. When I reread or listen to this book by myself, I will often skip over the abuse sections. Realistic violence is not for me. I don't need to learn the lesson that people are cruel, and unfortunately, women are often the victims of this violence. Fortunately, the author did a very clear job of pointing out that this violence is indeed bad, which doesn't always happen in media when women are harmed. However, I adore this book because the payoff at the end is worth it. The absurd plan that saves the day is hilarious, and Zoe played a huge part in defeating Molech. Zoe stood up for herself and protected others. Because of all of this brutality, I thought about rating this book lower, but I want to give the author, Jason Pargin, a gold star for pushing back against the trope of fridging a woman the main man loves by killing her off to give him motivation. He did the exact opposite. He killed off a man that the main woman didn't even know. However, I have to take off half a skull because the author kept using the word panties. That is a word that I've only ever heard creepy men and grandmas use. And that's why I am giving this story 3.5 skulls. Aaron, using the scale of 0 to 5 skulls to evaluate how feminine characters were represented in this book, how would you rate futuristic violence and fancy suits?
Yeah, I was not as generous as you. I was thinking just 3. Pretty much you laid out everything that I was thinking in those reasoning. It was immense amount of violence and domestic violence, the other violence, towards women and such and towards Zoe. But it was done in a way that expressly stated its wrongness. So that's why I gave it 3 stars, I think.
Stars?
Or sorry, skulls. What am I saying? Stars.
Oh, my stars. I'm insulted.
And the other, tropes that he brought in, like candy, which were done to such an absurd extent to, I think they basically expressed in their inappropriateness, whatever, offensiveness of their bad quality, or that it was sort of a reverse psychology, perhaps, in using the character to state how it's really, really offensive and awful character.
Well, how many electronic devices that have a robot voice programmed into it, the default is a feminine voice.
Right, exactly.
So you're going to give this story 3 stars? Oh, no,
3
I did it too. But
3 skulls. Yeah, but I love the book. Love the story. I think
yes.
Jason Pargin is getting better and better with everything that he produces.
Right. And this is a great demonstration to show that we can enjoy media, but still critique it in a meaningful way.
Yes.
I'm also going to share our lovely friends at the Unaccredited College of Claire gave Futuristic Violence and Fancy Suits 5 skulls on the Maenad-O-Meter. If you want to get a preview on future topics of this podcast and want to include your opinion, head over to patreon.com/Klaire Lockheart to join the Unaccredited College of Claire. Currently, participants get to vote whether they have a free or paid membership.
Do a paid membership.
Well, thank you for that support, Aaron. Now, Aaron, it's always a delight to spend time with you, and I'm happy you could talk about futuristic violence in fancy suits with me.
I was overjoyed. Such a pleasure. Love this book, so gonna talk about it.
Before I let you go, Aaron, allow me to guide our friends to connect with you online. You don't have a Blink account.
No,
Yet.
no, we don't have Blink. I think there's some things getting close to it. But I do have Instagram and LinkedIn and, the website.
Yes. And so I just want to remind everyone, if they're looking for you on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, that they need to search for Aaron C Packard. You can
Yes.
also find Aaron at aaronpackard.com, which is spelled AARONPACKARD. I also want to make sure to remind you wonderful listeners to stick around to meet the next recipient of the Honorary Doctor of Dystopian Studies degree. Aaron, thank you once again for being my guest.
You are welcome. Thank you.
Is it unprofessional if I tell you I love you?
I love you.
But before we end this interview, are you going to tell me something inconsequential and ruin the sentiment at the end, like Zoe's mom does? I love you.
Oh, I love you too.
Oh,
Remember to put out the recycling.
On that great callback, I bid you adieu.
Adieu.
This production is part of the Department of Dystopian Studies at the Unaccredited College of Claire. You may have heard rumors that the Unaccredited College of Claire isn't a real school, and it's actually my academia-themed Patreon account. I can only advise you to find me on Patreon to verify for yourself. Anyway, my favorite part of being the founder of UCK is that I get to award honorary degrees to the most amazing people I know. I'm thrilled to announce today's recipient of the Honorary Doctor of Dystopian Studies degree, Leah Riwo Leach. I first met Riwo through the incredible Gal's Guide to the Galaxy podcast, and I was fortunate enough to travel to Noblesville, Indiana to visit Gal's Guide, which is the first women's history lending library in the United States. Riwo is the founder and executive director of Gal's Guide, and you can check out this awesomeness for yourself by visiting galsguide.org. That's spelled GALSGUIDE.org. Welcome to the show, Dr. Leah Riwo Leach.
Thank you. It is an honor and a pleasure to be in your presence, darling.
I must ask, though, should I refer to you as Dr. Riwo?
I will only allow you to do that.
How are things going at Gal's Guide?
Brilliant. We have done a little bit of a remodel. We've actually made more spaces for events, and we made a little bit more room on our bookshelves by putting books into storage so that we haven't Tetrised too much. We kind of had a giant Jenga machine of books like happening in here. So it's a little bit more browsability.
Is your collection expanding through donations and just other ways you're acquiring books?
Oh yeah. Not only donations, which is a large part of where books come in, but we're also doing a around the world adventure. So we're buying a lot of international books and history books of women around the world as well. So that kind of grows the collection in wonderful various ways.
That's incredibly exciting. If any of our wonderful friends listening want to donate to Gal's Guide, what would be the best way to do that?
Honestly, it would go to the glorious website, which you have already told the good people. And there is a wonderful button on there that says donate. So it has where you can donate financially, or if you have books that you really want to see in a lending collection dedicated to women's history, it also has information on how to donate books, as well as our wish list. Maybe there's some books that you're like, hey, do they need these ones? We have that as well.
That's really exciting. And I just want to mention too that I do have a library card to Gal's Guide.
Yes, you do. You are a card carrying member.
Woohoo! Well, Riwu, I'm elated that you could fit me in your schedule. While many other colleges require their honorary doctorate recipients to give a long and tedious speech to a captive audience stuck on uncomfortable seats at a boring graduation ceremony, I won't make you suffer through that.
Yay!
Instead, I'll ask you 5 quick questions so our wonderful friends listening can learn more about you.
Sweet. I've been studying.
Oh,
Not really.
good. Let me know if you're ready.
I am ready.
First of all, what is one of your favorite apocalyptic movies?
I am a sucker for Armageddon, the Michael Bay ridiculousness of a movie. The idea that oil drillers need to go to a comet and drill on it is so I need to turn my brain off type of movie. That it has a special place in my heart. I have random quotes that I will go from that movie. It is all the kinds of ridiculousness. Although Mad Max has almost been creeping up there, but I'm still Armageddon's still the number 1 spot for me.
Next, if we were part of a post-apocalyptic community, how would you help us work together?
Well, the other side of kind of my life, if you will, with Gal's Guide, although it does blend very well, I've been a practicing Buddhist for 30 years. One of the clubs of Gal's Guide is Buddha Friends. We actually have a meditation group, and we talk about the Dharma, Buddhism, and wisdom that kind of comes from that. I'm a very silly human being. However, I do have great meditations for interconnectedness. And I think in a post-apocalyptic kind of time, to really kind of get us helping to remind ourselves that we can work together, interconnectedness meditation would probably be something I could bring to the table. The practice that I do that I love the most is called the ground of being. And it's a fantastic centering meditation.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. And if the meteor hits, I hope that I happen to be close to you so we can be in the same bunker together.
Absolutely. Yes. Doing those meditations, probably have lots of books. Perfect. Art as well. Oh my goodness. It's going to be a fun time. I mean,
So, would you rather fight a Vogon alien who wants to read you their terrible poetry, or fight a pair of pan-dimensional beings who want to remove and dissect your brain?
oh man, I really like my brain. I'm kind of attached to it, right?
Yeah.
I think I could do the Vogon poetry. I think I could do it. I know that it's like the worst thing ever. And I love the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy reference. Thank you very much. I think I could do the poetry. It would be hard, but I would do it.
Do you have a strategy to get through it?
Disassociation.
Mm. Ooh, you could drink a pan-galactic gargle
Yes.
blaster first.
Yes, alcohol and disassociation, both of those things. I think the George Clooney head bob nod smile. Have you ever heard this?
No.
This is his acting approach, especially in early days of George Clooney in ER, the TV show. He would just head bob nod smile. That was his acting strategy. If he wasn't talking, that is all he did. So
Oh, wow.
head bob nod smile.
Well, I had to include, of course, the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy reference because it's the gal's guide to the galaxy.
Exactly. That is where our namesake comes from.
Well, you do know the answer to life, the universe, and everything.
I do. 42 every
Yeah.
time.
And if that's not satisfying enough, we could just check out some books and read some more too.
I think so. I think that would be great. I could meet you at the restaurant at the end of the universe.
Oh, then we get those pan-galactic gargle blasters.
The party.
But back to the questions. The next one I have for you is, the world is stressful when it feels like it is ending. So how will you stay centered as society collapses?
It is something that I'm actually learning, and I don't know how helpful it'll necessarily be as society collapses, but I have been learning a Tibetan Buddhist tradition that is also that is actually about treasure vases. There are these blessed vases that are from lamas and are from very sacred places, and you bury them in the ground, and they are supposed to safeguard you and your loved ones. And I'm very much of, I'll give it a shot. Like, why not have all of the good luck possible? So I'm actually learning about those. And when you asked the question, I was like going, wait a minute, maybe that could come in handy.
That sounds like a good strategy.
Yeah, treasure vases.
I like it. Finally, Riwo, what words of encouragement would you like to share with us when it feels like we're slogging through the end times?
I actually have this phrase on my desk. I use it far more often than I need to. It's on my desk right there when I'm on the internet to remind myself within social media and life and emails and all that stuff that we will all learn eventually. Maybe not this lifetime, maybe not this moment, but we will all learn eventually.
That is surprisingly encouraging.
Right?
I could have used this encouragement back in the days when I was teaching kindergarten.
I know, right? Especially kindergartners. And maybe if you picture everybody on the internet as a kindergartner with their tantrums and their circle time, that will help make things make sense.
I was thinking of my boss when I was teaching kindergarten, but the children
Oh,
too. Yes,
the
yes.
children.
So they're difficult as well.
We're all difficult. We're all going to learn eventually.
Oh, well, thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Riwo.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
And I hope that everyone who's listening right now who enjoys your company will check out the Gal's Guide Galaxy podcast.
It's very silly. We are usually quite drunk. You know, you were there.
I know. That's why I highly recommend it.
Perfect.
Femininity in the Post-Apocalypse was created and edited by me, Klaire Lockheart. Making this show is certainly a lot more fun than screaming into the void. If you enjoy my company, find me at clairelockhart.com so you can see my artwork. My website is KLAIRELOCKHEART.com. All my gratitude goes to Aaron C Packard of Aaron C Packard Productions for providing the voiceover work and my recording equipment. Check out his awesome photography at AARONPACKARD.com. Thank you again for listening, subscribing, and recommending this podcast to your friends. I truly appreciate you being part of this community, and I can't wait for you to join me next week.